And well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. Live on a Monday morning, still morning here on the west coast of Mexico. I guess it's noon on the east coast, where the silver investors over there have had quite a time over the last 24 hours, or not 24 hours yet, but as many are aware, silver, all the commodities opened sharply last night in the Far East, and was looking good in Silverland. Silver over $26. Gold crossed over $2,000 an ounce a couple of times, and it's getting close back up there now. Obviously, as many were wondering, would the price get hammered at some point last night or this morning? Sure enough, it did. Actually, I mean, that was, for some of you who saw the video I made last night, wondering really how does that play out at the $2,000 level, where, you know, the Russian-Ukraine thing is just the latest factor to add in there. It's hardly the only one. So to the degree that as things, you know, and I mean, we could talk about that a little bit. Again, I'm trying to piece together. I'm not there, and, you know, media, I'm not sure what to think of, you know, a lot of the other stuff I hear as well. So, but it certainly doesn't appear to be going ideally. And I think I sent something out on Twitter on Friday saying, I wonder if we see $2,000 gold on the open on Sunday. And they shot up right off the bat. Oil was spiking on the open yesterday. And the thesis of last night's video was, gee, you know, when you look at what's going on in the world and then you see gold at $2,000 now, is there really, you know, if gold goes from 1990 to 2010, goes up $20, does that really make a difference in the grand scheme of it, that it's worth $20 more? No, but the fact that, you know, just the way these markets are set up, you know, a lot of stop orders, a lot of trading activity, and also just catches people's attention. And similar to how we've talked plenty about how last year during Silver Squeeze, when silver got over 30, you saw the attention that was coming in there. You saw how funds were piling in. All of a sudden there was the interest, and that's why they tamped it down. And again, to be clear, Ross didn't just tamp it down himself. I mean, I'm assuming he met with the Exchange Stabilization Fund and Plunge Protection Team. Again, the Plunge Protection Team is the chairman of the CFTC, at least one member of the Federal Reserve Board, Secretary Treasury Janet Yellen, and Gary Gensler. And some of you may have seen Gary's less than ideal performance on the Jon Stewart show. Talk about that today if necessary, but stack all that together and it's like, gee, you know, if they were willing to, I mean, if they were willing to do this, is pretty much what they do. Look, Nibbles he's upset. Nibbles, you didn't like it, did you? If this is what they were willing to do and are willing to do regularly, and again, I keep having this visual that pops to mind. Back in, I think, 2011, I remember one day being on the office. We had a trading floor off of the New York Stock Exchange, and I'm up there, and there's something had just happened the night before, and it was the old, they intervened in the end. Well, who's the they? And who's the ones doing all this stuff? I mean, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, that's part of the Treasury. So I'm guessing Janet Yellen's not in there, you know, actually clicking and hitting the bids and trying to execute positions. I mean, hopefully they have someone with more of a clue than her doing that. Or I don't know if I would hope for that or not. I don't know which would be scarier, but excuse me, I have a little bit of a fever over the last week, so been playing injured to get you the silver news. So please excuse a sniffle here or there or scratchy throat. But anyway, just wanted to explain at least what I see going on, take some questions. Certainly I can understand people being frustrated because to finish that intro there was that if they were willing to intervene to keep silver under $30 for certain reasons, I would suggest the certain reasons were present, with perhaps even more on the line, watching gold go over 2,000. I mean, now it's, you're getting a lot of attention on that, which, I think is what they fear the most, because the more attention you have on a Ponzi scheme, quicker it implodes. Think about it like this. The day it became public that Bernie Madoff was running a Ponzi scheme, people were pulling their money out as fast as possible. Now, on the other hand, you have this environment where every time the U.S. government finances start getting exposed, there's another war, or there's another something, or, this has been going on. This has nothing to do with Russia or Ukraine. This has been going on, in our entire lives. So, and you hear like, well, we're going to get the accounting in check, or we're going to do this and that, and then those guys leave office, they go off and die. You get Bush, the second one, does the same thing. And anyway, so there's a lot to keep in check, and it looked like the gold demand of the world was winning for a while last night, but whoever it was, somebody was selling, and it wasn't me. Ross doesn't seem to want to talk about it, so that is the general gist. Now, with all of that said, does that mean, the manipulation is ever going to end and, everything's off? I would not say that. Still, despite, if you get a zero hedge headline saying, well, they're going to have a meeting and the market rallies or people start buying stocks again, that doesn't change that you already had 7-8% inflation prints last year. No one's been talking about the truckers lately in Canada. Now they're circling Washington, D.C., is what I hear. Supply chain that was already fragile. Now they basically just cut Russia out of the financial system. I get the feeling, I don't know this as fact, but it seems to me like they are not too upset about that. But again, I don't want to claim to be an expert on Russian relations and that whole situation. But in the end, people are still buying the heck out of physical from everything that I look at, as well as the common sense. And let alone, are we going to get those higher interest rates now? Is the Fed going to undo its balance sheet in the middle of all this? Doesn't seem likely. So, yeah, maybe they were able to hammer the prices down another night. I guess the way it feels to me is like, whatever it takes to live another day, even aside from before things escalated in Russia or in Ukraine. Last week you had the State of the Union address, and as clear, more and more abundant and detailed evidence, the stuff that Pfizer and these other guys said we didn't want to release the trial results for these medicines they were dishing out, that the White House was actually taking taxpayer money to pay for a lot of conflicts of interest. And even now, after the evidence is coming out at an increasingly rapid pace of, some of these conflicts of interest, the risks that were known long before they were made mandatory or even put on the market. And yet you have the same guy, Biden, still doubling down, saying to get this medicine, and but then focus goes away from that when you have a new conflict. But these things didn't get resolved. They may be trying to get people to ignore it. I don't know how much longer you can get people to ignore all of these things. And I see the stuff that Benham does out of the CFTC and Gary Gensler. That's like the financing of a terrorist organization. And I don't say that lightly, but what is the U.S. government at this point? Weapons of mass destruction that never existed. There was evidence. Not only did they exist, they framed the damn evidence to make it look like they were there. The World Trade Centers that came down, Bush and Cheney never answered many questions. Never talked about Bush's and Bin Laden's being business partners. All this stuff that one day is going to come to an end. Apparently it wasn't this morning in terms of the silver price, but whether, I don't know, I would say maybe Benham won last night's round, but, where is he going to go? I mean, who's going to unforget what happened? And with all that said, that's a quick summation. But let me know what questions you have. Is anyone selling physical silver today? I mean, is anyone selling physical gold? Did anyone say, well, gold got over $2,000 a couple times last night, then it went hit, oh, maybe the demand's gone? Uh, Seems unlikely to me. For what it's worth, I was buying some call options today, had a bit in there. And it's interesting, keep an eye on the mining stocks, at least the silver stocks, which I look at more closely. I was surprised they weren't down because the stock market is down. And but the silver stocks were actually doing pretty well. Go Endeavor, approaching that 5 strike. Fortuna busting through the 4 strike. So I know Nate Fisher somewhere out there is smiling today. And anyway, interesting reaction in the market. And I'm looking for questions in there. I see a lot of comments, which are nice. And maybe I'll read some of those as well. But certainly if you have questions. Yeah, maybe one other comment on the market reaction where, sure, we talk about silver being manipulated, metals being manipulated, and I would maintain that belief. Although sometimes the counter arguments I hear is, well, everything's manipulated. And I would agree fully with that. So if there's ever a time, I can't tell you this is going to happen or this isn't going to happen and this one's going to be true or not, or every possible scenario. But if there's ever been a time to be prepared that, all right, event X is rolled out on CNBC headlines, and you would think, all right, it's so obvious. Like if we got a 20% inflation print on Thursday. Yeah, that's right. CPI comes out Thursday, the 10th, which I believe is Thursday. So let's say we get a 20% inflation print. You're thinking, gee, well, maybe that would even catch the Fed's attention. But then silver goes down $1 on the COMEX. I think it's getting harder and harder for them to do that. Otherwise, they probably would have done it a lot lower, a lot longer time ago. And I don't know how many bullets Venom has left, but to the degree of just being prepared for the markets to not respond in a way that would seem logical, especially in the short term, because there's 8 million people trying to rig it. Who knows who turns on who at what point. I watched that movie Margin Call again last night. You see, in the end, when they were faced with a crisis, what they do? They found some other sucker to dump it on and screw them. So I'm sure there's a ton of that going on, like you saw at the end of The Big Short, where, the thing finally got marked once Goldman got their position on. So, with that said, just be prepared for it. The markets don't react, how we were told with the, pricing and everything instantly. Anyway, USB and First Try. Well, thank you for that kind donation. Says, seems like oil could be the catalyst for silver breaking out. What price can they not smash it down effectively? Great comment. And in fact, I might add today's show sponsored by Kuya Silver. And I talked to David Stein of Kuya Silver, who's one of the few people left on the planet who's been able to figure out how to keep a silver company together through this environment. Not the easiest thing to do. And wanted to talk to him about how basically the silver price is going up, or else the silver supply is going to get crushed because, all right, now silver mining, it's already hard enough with the price being rigged lower. Now all these supply chains are making things more difficult. Now you have oil skyrocketing to run drills, to fly to the sites. Everything, most companies in some way are impacted by higher energy costs, but certainly a silver mining company, which now fortunately, and we'll check in with him. I'll be calling him later today, and I'll get an update. Everything seems to, at least given the situation, he's, the balance sheet in check and things going well. They were even able to buy some assets at a lower price. So, the way I look at it, sometimes with the mining stocks have to be able to not worry about that paper price day to day, where again, this is not legal financial advice, but just my own perspective. there's, the day that silver is over $50, it's going to look a lot different. And to some degree, it's like, all right, we don't know when that's going to be. Can these companies maintain their balance sheet throughout that? Um, but with that said, the longer the price is lower with rising energy costs, that means the margin went down. That means less economically incentive for a new project to go online, making it harder for the existing projects. Overall, you keep the energy price high, and you're not making it easier to mine silver. So we already didn't have a lot of people who've been able to figure it out in the current environment. So, although one comment to add to that, I don't know if it'll be this week, but I do have a couple guys on our team. We've now been working on the one sheet, so that soon we'll have something to present publicly in regards to an idea that I talked with. This formal part came through a conversation from an executive from one of the larger companies that you would be familiar with, but I'll leave his name out today, where just discussing is there a way to help some of the other miners realize that their silver proceeds are being stolen from. And so he had suggested, well, if there was some sort of shareholder petition where, silver shareholders, which is maybe the people watching now, obviously, if you can get someone like Eric Sprott on board, or large shareholders that are financing these companies who are willing to say, look, we understand if you withhold metal from the COMEX, in the short term, and the Wall Street junkies, they might hammer the stock because, you've seen this. I think it was Endeavor, it might have been a different company, but one of them it might have been First Majestic, who got hammered, because I was reading some analysts are saying, well, revenue this quarter was lower, they had withheld metal because the price was lower. So at a lower price, to me, as a long-term shareholder, that's a positive as long as they're going to be in the game when the price finally goes up. If you're a Wall Street guy and you're trading day to day next quarter, then, is what it is. But anyway, that is something that I've been putting together where, that we can have something where people or silver investors, whether you're a shareholder now or would be interested in purchasing shares of silver stocks or being a part owner of a silver stock, which is actually what the share ownership represents. It kind of gets lost in today's culture, but we'll have that, which then is nice because then I can present that to some of the, as Keith Newmeyer has pointed out, a lot of the silver is coming from these guys that aren't even mining for silver. They're just getting it as a byproduct. I believe it's between 70 to 80% of the silver that's mined comes from non-primary silver miners. So this way we'll be able to have something that people who support that can show their support, or just by signing it. I think we'll make something if people want to support the thing financially. Certainly can expand what we're doing. I've hired 2 people, so I've actually I think I'm up to 6 now, which is kind of weird. Not the whole point of a YouTube channel is I could just be a hermit and do these things alone, but it's nice to have some help because we can get these things done faster, move things forward, take legal action. I've been mapping out all sorts of great ideas of lawsuits, especially against Benham. I got one for George Bushy too, and Joe Biden, a whole host of others, because these guys are committing crimes left and right. And I think there's something to be said for just getting attention on these things, and at least for me, I don't necessarily need to win a court case. I can consider it marketing, which, anyway, just a few thoughts, but yes, so there are good things happening, and hopefully I finished answering that other guy's question that, yes, the higher energy cost going to be an issue for silver supply at the current price. So, and again, why perhaps this whole situation is kind of like, all the conditions have to line up at the right time. You have to be right there, and where it's like the whole silver market has always kind of seemed on the fence, but there's just like certain points of no return in my mind. Kind of like if silver goes over 30, if silver hits $35, $40, I don't think that we'll be seeing it in the 20s again. I don't think that we go back to the last decade from there. Uh, who knows? But anyway, let me take some of the comments here. For most of us, a 1,000 ounce bar isn't a wise investment. Much easier to buy, sell, trade 1 ounce coins or rounds. Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Um, and I know Andy Sheckler, Franklin, he's quite adamant about that. He like, he almost wanted to like fight me once when I was trying to buy like bigger blocks. Not literally fight me, but he was trying to talk me out of it. And certainly, I mean, I guess let me put it like this. If you're getting your first 1,000 ounces of silver, then by all means, yeah, get some rounds. Maybe some like smaller bars, 10 ounce bars or whatever. At the same time, if you had $30 million of silver, you probably wouldn't want that all in 1 ounce coins or rounds. I don't have 30 million dollars worth of silver at the moment. Although I would say that there's depending on where silver goes before the March options expiration, it's not impossible, that leverage and unleveraged math, it can really compound and add up. So, but there are times and appropriate places for a 1,000 ounce bar. I would say, for average, not that you're not average, every special retail investor, though, for, you're a regular retail investor is new. Yes, I think there's a lot to be said that the smaller coins and ounces, that's where the junk silver can be really good because, maybe want to trade something or, if you're in your community, it's starting to go to more barter economy already, or, nice to have those smaller increments. And speaking of barter economies, we talked about this at Silverfest, and it's not been forgotten, but it's still in the works. The Arcadia Barter Post have actually heard from some programmers who are trying to help make cool little list of fun things. These are the things now that we've hired people, have overcome the Biden regime to become a job creator, even though I've been influenced to want to leave the country by almost everything that man does. Although, a quick side note on that, there are times, I do want to come back at some point. Hey, I have a bunch of health things that I've been trying to heal, and it seems like another one gets piled on top of that. It was first my foot and shoulder and a whole bunch of other stuff, and dealing with an eye infection right now, which is why not going to be doing too much on-camera stuff this week, but we'll be okay. Anyway, but with that said, I don't know that I would go back now, where I'm not sure whether they're going to be like a new vax mandate. I think this stuff is coming to an end, but for people who have wondered, I know sometimes people have wondered, and there's part of me that looks forward to being able to come home at the right time and just also taking care of my body. And it certainly is nice to be warm today. A year or two ago, I would have been in Colorado. So anyway. All right, ZX Purple Vlogs. You think 20% of a stack in constitutional makes sense? Not quite sure what you mean. But let me give a general answer to that one. I think like whatever feels right to you individually is a really good starting point. 20% of anything is going to be different for everyone. Maybe one person, most of their financial assets is in real estate, or it may or may not be the time to sell that, or someone is, every situation is just so different. When I left Wall Street, everything I had was in physical gold, silver, mining stocks, or the options on there. Now, had silver skyrocketed then, it would have been great. Obviously it took a different turn, but at the same time I was studying marketing and how to build a business, and it was a risk that I took. I'm not saying by any means that's what other people should do, but start by thinking about what feels right to you. Talk that over with your family members, because some people, I know there's that rule of thumb, put 5 or 10% in gold and silver, and I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of risk in dollars and treasuries, and you know, without being able to talk face to face to an individual person, it's kind of hard for me to say. But certainly a good time to really be evaluating the risks of a lot of these things properly, or at least as best as possible. And what does that mean by not just assuming whatever some nitwit from Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan mounts off on CNBC? Um, I share the best that I know here, but by all means, hey, maybe there's something you see differently or situations different. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Thank you for the kind. Hope you feel better. Silver eye drops. Yeah, I actually did do that last week. I have some different stuff this week. I think it's getting better. One's pretty bloodshot right now, but the beer stuff has passed. Focus on war. MSM controlling the narrative. The beer stuff has passed. I'm not quite sure what that means, but yeah. I guess that's, they're all different, but yeah, I lump like a lot of these things in. Biden, his role in the Ukraine. I mean, it's amazing to me that he's sanctioning Russia and fixing Ukraine, where we still don't. If anyone could explain to me or anyone what actually happened in Afghanistan, that seems to be a black box that, I don't know, maybe some people understand, but I'm guessing most Americans don't. So, and then seeing the way that the regulatory agencies are involved. Benham, he's appointed by Biden. And seeing the way the media covers this up. Been thinking about whether to email the CNBC again, the person I've talked with there who claims that, or have an email where said that, took my concerns about Jeff Curry, showed it to her boss, and wanted to hear if I had heard back from Donna Falk-White from the CFTC, the media director who I called, and then made that video about. So yeah, the media is very involved in these things. It's a very unfortunate situation all around, is my belief. So that's why it's like I don't claim to know every detail of every situation, but you study this stuff and pay attention long enough, and you get the general idea. Tim Gibson there says, how about that gold? Well, first of all, thank you for that kind donation there, Tim. Appreciate that. Yeah, it was certainly a lot of attention on gold, and that it got that close. It didn't get that close to $2,000. It went over 2,000 twice. I'm not even sure what the price is doing right now. I don't have a computer open here, but I mean, and that's why the title of that video last night was Ralston Benham and the Plunge Protection Team against the demand for gold around the world. I mean, I don't, no matter what happens in Ukraine, I mean, are they going to start trading oil with Russia again? That doesn't seem like the type of thing this U.S. administration would do. It doesn't seem like that thing's getting better, but either way, sure, you can tamp it down, but these contracts, they are still out there. I mean, if they get to that force majeure point, or, plus it's like you have the inflation roaring. Now Canadians, what are they supposed to think after what they've seen? Now you have Russian people that are worried about being able to get their money out. So I don't see how the gold demand goes away. If you tell me they tamp the price down or try and sell more futures, I could believe that, but man, it'd be like buying mortgages at the right before that was about to collapse. So I think the gold demand is going to be strong, and my guess is that there will be some point where it goes through 2,000 and then shoots up. Maybe you have a couple more times where it gets there, goes through a little bit, and gets hammered, but I would imagine at some point, there's some decent-sized spike up there, and we shall see. We will take a few more questions here. Jared says, why is silver the hill the bankers are willing to die on Why is it their Achilles heel? Everything else on the earth is surging, and yet the thing that all modern tech needs is losing ground? That's a great question. Um, and yeah, I fully agree that I love that you even use the Achilles heel, because that's how I've thought of it. That's why I've dedicated so much of my life to doing what I can about it, because if you think of government, and now it seems like a lot of these governments around the globe have been going to mafia school with Klaus Schwab. I never really heard of this fellow before, but certainly some of the things I've been seeing about him seems like a pretty dirty dude. And training, I mean, that's where these people like Trudeau are learning how to rule a country like Canada, where I don't know if Biden went there or not, but I think of it as like an international mafia. Imagine if what you saw in The Goodfellas or The Godfather, that's kind of how I think of as government. And I think it really goes back a lot longer than we've thought, where one crime gets covered up by the next crime, and like September 11th was covering up previous crimes. In fact, here's what fun one: Google the Black Eagle Trust Fund. One of the things that, if this is indeed accurate, and his research seemed to look pretty impressive to me, older George Bush took out, according to the article, $200 billion of bonds so they could overthrow the Russian economy in 1991, and those were coming due on September 11th, 2001, 10 years later. So, you had to get that cleared, and when the Fed got shut down that day, and what was it, Cantor Fitzgerald and Euro brokers got blown up, and also the Office of Naval Affairs in the Pentagon got destroyed, who had apparently would have done the investigation of that, but I heard was actually already investigating people like Cheney, Bush, and these notorious war criminals who lied and did a genocide. I call it in Iraq. My understanding of the history, they also lied to Saddam Hussein and said they would not block him if he went after Kuwait, and then changed their mind. So anyway, it's like a lot of these things stacked on top of each other and is based on money printing. And at the heart of that is gold and silver, and why I've leaned more towards silver. And I think, in line with your question there, gold, and it is interesting that same author does mention a lot of the gold from World War II. And I won't get into like whether there's gold in the Grand Canyon, although I have seen some interesting things about the gold supply. I mean, A, I don't assume we're getting the real numbers, and B, I've never heard any people talk about it, but there was a lot of looting for gold and silver back in World War II. So where that went, I'm guessing the Bush clan, who was back then doing financing through Brown Brothers Harriman, was not, going out of their way to share it with the people. What happened with the gold and silver that went missing on September 11th, 2001? What's going on with the gold in Fort Knox? If it's really there, why is there such a hesitancy to audit or show even any willingness? And then just do that weird thing on the lunar eclipse or whatever it was, and send Steve Mnuchin there to say, wow, the guy actually said, wow, it'd be quite a movie if we went to Fort Knox and the gold wasn't there, which seems like a little bit of an unusual comment given today's day and age. And so at the end of it, why silver? Because I think there's a lot of dirty stuff. And I mean, my gut feel is that there will be things that come out that would blow all of our minds, even beyond anything that I've seen to this point, that one way are covered up by printed money or different crimes, and whether people stay in power, the ability to go build more missiles. Also keep in mind, I think it's 500 ounces of silver or so in a Tomahawk missile, so you have the war impact of silver. So the thing, and maybe the difference between gold, I think the demand for gold from the monetary standpoint is there, but silver, you have the ticking clock, because so much of it gets consumed, and then you have these conditions building, which we've talked about on the channel for so long, and like earlier today, where now with the rising oil price, and they're going to make it harder for the silver miners. if they still want to go green, all that stuff. Like, the numbers just never added up. So conceivably, I mean, I guess you could conceivably drag the gold thing out for longer, but silver, it's just that dual component where there's like a ticking time clock on it. And, if you told me everything soared and silver was the last one to go, I could believe that. I mean, hopefully, I don't know, I think that's already, I guess it's already happened. But I mean, I think there's people out there who would literally, and I think that's what they're doing now. You look at the way, even forget the thing in Ukraine, but look at Joe Biden to do the stuff he's doing. Once the dollar, I don't think he can do that. Whatever happened in Afghanistan, the fact that there's 30,000 troops, American troops in Germany. Why? How much does that cost? So can you still do this once that's popped? Is he even around? Do any of these things keep happening? Then, or just even more directly, look at the effects of inflation. It's not easy for a lot of people. I'm seeing around the world where, I think there's a lot of people already struggling, and now you're raising the cost of food. So, this is going to hurt people. Some people eventually die. Then you have these same people who are involved with this. They're financing, they're switching board of directors with the pharmaceutical companies. So, yeah, I think you could actually say the people, if you use the powers that be, are literally willing to kill people to maintain this. And I know sometimes when I'm like ranting about Benham on Twitter, I guess some people may see it out of context and say, hey, why is he blaming everything left, right, and center on Benham? Well, maybe he's the metaphorical figurehead to me, or the most direct one, but a lot of the reasons why I felt necessary to leave the U.S. Thinking about, being considered collateral damage on 2001. These things are all tied together, and that's why I think these guys are willing to dig their heels in and, look at what they did last night. All the stuff going on in Russia, and what are they focused on? Darn well that they went in and intervened and hammered the price. You saw it in silver. You saw it in some of these other markets where for a while, like, the stocks were starting to rally again and everything was down except the U.S. stock market. But Benham won't answer that. He'll tell his friends at the banks that attend the CFTC meeting to set the policy. Then he'll go to their conference at Boca Raton and talk about tamping the price down, but he won't tell anybody else. Mr. Cut says, Afghanistan was all about those poppies. That sure is what I continue to hear. I can't even imagine. I couldn't even imagine the stuff I've been learning that's going on in the U.S., let alone what these guys are doing around the world. Joe Biden. They said they wanted to. What was it yesterday? Like, buy fighter jets, send them to Poland. It's just like like they're running guns. I heard they just sent in a pile of weapons. All right. Where's the money for that come from? Where does the money for any of these things come from? They want a bigger military budget this year. Where's the money for that come from? Well, with a rigged paper market, rigged silver price, and so I don't know if it will play out as cut and dry, directly correlated as this, but or maybe it will. But my way of thinking is that when the silver market breaks, this all ends. That's why it's like the times where it feels close, and you just hope, not for a war, but if the thing ever pressured the silver market, where I don't know how you can rebuild life in honest fashion without that. I'm here in Mexico. Everyone's still looking at America as oh man, if I could just figure out a way to make it there, get a job and live the American dream, and I get that. And I've seen other countries where they're still looking back to that. But what we were told when we were growing up, but we're not in 1960 anymore. And this has been certainly an accelerated degrade since 1971. Nixon takes us off the dollar. The thing should have broken in 1980. And in fact, I would suggest that it really did. but they had to rig the silver market back then. These things aren't unconnected. You know, the other. That's why we have. That's why we had to put up with Jeff Christian for the last 40 years. Jeff Christian. We don't have probably after silver breaks. Hopefully, we won't have to listen to that idiot anymore. Chris, do you think we'll have a crypto backed by gold? Well, I guess there's a few of them out there already. There's Kinesis, a few others. I don't know if you're asking if there will be a government-backed one. I'm sure they'll try. Anyway, they J.P. Morgan, Goldman, and which what if we maybe I can combine it like the J.P. Goldman Reserve instead of saying J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the Federal Reserve. The J.P. Goldman Reserve. I'm sure that they're not. Yeah, it's annoying for us because we care about silver. But I don't think it's just silver. Like, they'll steal money anywhere they can steal it from. Nicholas Nasty says Benham is the guy guarding the gate. Yeah, that's right. And that's why even though I know, like, the negative energy that, comes with it, that's why I still have been planning many things for Rosti. All peaceful and so forth. Don't worry. It's nothing outside of those bounds, but just for example, we're about to start running YouTube ad commercials on Ross the Boss. I don't know if anyone saw that. If you look on, we've been running commercials for the Big Silver Short on Kitco and the CPM Group channel, and now maybe we'll do CNBC and get a quick, hard-hitting 30-second one that will focus on Ross. So put into perfect context. So if somebody knew nothing about silver, but they'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? And whatever it takes in ethical fashion to stop it, I'm for. So silver is like the Q train. If that's the Q train in New York, which was kind of slow, I can imagine. Anyway, I'm going to see if there's any final questions here before I wrap up for today. Again, I would like to mention this episode brought to you by Kuya Silver, run by David Stein, who I'll be calling actually at the top of the hour. We'll be broadcasting that tomorrow. But asking him that same question we had in the chat earlier today about, what's the rising oil going to affect silver? So he'll be a perfect person to talk to. Justin Maxwell, thank you for writing to Ross and no response. I appreciate you did that. Anyone, if you can contact the CFTC without... Consider it just that you contacted them a win. I mean, if they're afraid to do anything, if they're afraid to act, great. Maybe one day you catch someone on the day where they're feeling a little conscious, and maybe they report someone. And in the end, that woman, Donna Falk-White, the media director, kept saying she would look into it and then just showed her true traitorous colors. And you don't have to take my word for that. You can see the evidence for yourself. Video CFTC suppresses silver manipulation again, I believe it was called about 2 or 3 months ago. So you can see the evidence, and I also am organizing my evidence file. Very close to being ready. Have to get something ready for a lawyer meeting this week, which I think will be good development. What is this guy saying? Stop. All right. So anyway, some good things happening. Belly Dan says NWO is falling. It does seem like that. I know people want it to fall faster, and it's hard because we don't really know a lot of the things that are going on or that we hear. But anyway, CFTC works for JPM and Goldman Sachs. That is true, Jay. It's quite unfortunate, but true. Yara Vinay says, check out our new homepage, arcadiaeconomics.com. There's an evidence room tab. Well, there we go. And wait, we've been putting some, I like to think there's some great stuff in there, including the rounds of evidence that I submitted to the CFTC that they've been suppressing, which we can talk with that lawyer about this week. But wait till you see what will be in there soon. And Yeah, and also on the ArcadiaEconomics.com homepage, there is a mailing list. So that way, if you don't get notifications on YouTube, or if FuroTube decides that I, disagreed with the WH organization or something like that, at least that way you can stay posted as we're figuring out some better ways to do things. Also, creating an environment, by all means, in the comments. Now, I know some people have seen me duking it out with some of the viewers. Uh, Disagreement is welcome. Just running your mouth and being negative, if you got to do that, do it somewhere else. But if you do it in the comments or just complaining about something in unjustified context, in my opinion, then you may hear from me. I'm going to try and do better things with my time, but I want this to be a place where people can discuss stuff, and have some friendly people in there, so it'd be like a fun party. And also working on creating some things where we can interact more. Gonna figure out some way to get an in-person event this year, hopefully sooner than later, but so this way the people who really care and appreciate it and are part of this community can do some more fun stuff and have a nice, safe environment. So anyway, there you go. I'm going to go get ready for call with David Stein of Kuya Silver to figure out how this is going to affect the silver supply, what's going on, and also take a look at the markets, catch my breath a little bit. But hope this was helpful. Hope you're feeling a little better. And I know it's not always so much fun to hear, well, be prepared, it could hurt again tomorrow, but there's going to be one of these days where it'll come. And I like to think that, cry and scream for a little bit if you have to, and then, as quickly as possible. That's just what I always focus on. All right, well, things lower today. What can I do with my time best served to, whether that's trading or focusing on my business or sometimes just getting a break for it. So hopefully that ocean visual was helpful today. And anyway, with that said, thank you all for being here. Sure do appreciate that. Hope you're doing well out there, staying safe. Give somebody a hug today. Be nice to someone unnecessarily. So if someone flips you off in traffic, if you can let it go, or just smile at someone. And that's today's words of wisdom. And I will talk to you later.